To my lore video series on Warhammer Fantasy battles. I had so much fun with my first one on Warhammer the Old World's new maps that I decided to do one on Giants of the Old World, and that is what we're going to be talking about today. So thank you for tuning in, and please leave me any suggestions in the comments below. I'm more than happy to take a look there at improvements to make to these, or also, of course, to new ideas for videos of the future. Getting right to it, we're going to be talking today about the giants of the world of Warhammer. So not the Sons of Behemat of the Age of Sigmar, but of the world that was. Giants are the most ubiquitous creatures of the many different magical creatures or monsters that inhabit the Warhammer world. They're known to be especially dim-witted and especially violent to the point of cruelty. But it'd be difficult to say that they're evil, more so that they really just enjoy a good fight, and even more so than a good fight, they enjoy drinking and eating to excess. And when they can't get their own food from the area around them, they will be happy to take it from whoever is nearest to them, whether it's a small town, a big city, or a local camp or a caravan. The places where we find giants most commonly are not the populated areas of the old world, because the people here, or in Ulthuan, Nagarond, these people have already wiped out the giants nearby. So if you find giants in these areas, they're likely to be ones that are already hired or civilized, which does happen. Giants do not fail to possess intelligence. They just tend to not use it all that often because they enjoy their relatively simple way of looking at life. Similarly, giants are not very commonly found in Lustria or the Southlands because the creatures there are simply so impressive, the giant saurian beasts there, that they tend to be competition for food. And again, giants really prefer the kinds of food they can get from the civilized lands, already processed dairy products and beer that's already been brewed. So where you're going to be finding giants primarily are on the fringes of society, so within striking distance, but also far enough away that they can sleep and not have to worry about being too close to being annoyed by anybody. The biggest area, the most common and densest populations of giants we're going to find is going to be the island of Albion, the mountains of Morn, and the Badlands. And we're going to be talking about all of them today in this video and talking about what kinds of giants you'll find there. The first on our list is actually going to be the Badlands. And this is the preferred stomping ground of the orcs and goblins. While just like giants, orcs and goblins live anywhere, the Badlands are an especially great place for orcs and goblins and giants because it's a lawless area where might makes right, and there's no one, with the exception of maybe some dragons, who are mightier than most giants. So giants do tend to live and ply their trade throughout the Badlands. They'll be happy to either take what they want or sell their services to the human, dwarf, or orcs and goblin tribes that live throughout the region. Orc and goblin giants tend to be especially barbaric looking, bearing weapons and clothing that belies whatever they were able to find from their local area, and not really worrying too much about who they're smashing because they're inspired by the same wog energy that they're getting from the army around them. That being said, they don't bear any sort of special allegiance to Gork and Mork. This is again not Age of Sigmar. This is Warhammer Fantasy battles, and they're really just there for the booze. They're happy to take it from the orcs and goblins if they aren't getting it enough. But if they are, and the war chief is doing a great job helping them get what they want, then they will be a great ally to him. As far as the war chief's concerned, having a giant on your side just makes you look all the more impressive. And from a tactical standpoint, as we can see in this still here of a siege, looks like of Kislev, the giant is performing what the orcs and goblins cannot, and knocking down a large building, which is a great sign of stature for the orc, as well as providing a tactical advantage. The next place that we're going to be that we'll be looking at is the island of Albion, and this is the farthest reach in the Old World. It's also home to the largest remaining species of giant in the Old World, which is the bone grinder giants. Now, Albion is roughly analogous to England in the real-world map, and bone grinder giants are twice the height of a regular giant, so they've been largely eradicated in the rest of the world, if only because they eat and drink far too much. So it's difficult for them to find a food source that's robust enough for them. But that being said, they've also been spotted in Bretonnia, which is great for the knights of that land because they offer an opportunity to go ahead and find something to quest with. But in reality, mostly they just live in Albion, where the druids of that land have accepted them as part of their culture. Speaking of Albion, it isn't just bone grinder giants that live there. They're also home to their own breed of local giants, regular-sized ones, that have been part of the local culture and religious shamanistic religion there for quite some time. Those giants have been seen throughout the Warhammer world, more so in recent years as the end times approaches, after Be'lakor invaded the island in his quest to free himself of his curse to the Chaos Gods. However, we would be remiss if we didn't talk about the original home of the giants, the Mountains of Morn. This area of the world sits between the empires of Cathay and the Chaos Dwarves. It's home to the Ogre Kingdoms, currently overseen by Gracis Goldtooth. But in the past, long before the Ogres rose to power, before the Great Maw opened up, it was home to the Sky Titans. These giants built huge castles in the sky, an entire civilization that had grown to the point of advancement where they could actually build cannons and technology, and they could farm and harvest animals and crops up at those high elevations. They were roughly the size of bone grinder giants, if not larger, and the eldest amongst them had grown in peace and prosperity to the point where they were actually turning into the mountains themselves, according to legend. But unfortunately for the giants, the war in the sky, as the ogres have called it, represented a seminal event in the history of the ogres, and they did eventually crush the giants as a part of their own ascendancy, killing and eating their entire race down to the very last one, and forcing the remaining giants to flee the area. The giants that we see in today's world, the smaller, dumber variety, are the result of that culling of the entire race. At this point in their history, the giants that remain in this area are in fact enslaved by the ogres, who see it as both a status symbol and also, of course, a tactical advantage. Unlike orcs and goblins, where the giants tend to be persuaded to go along with them, ogres do beat the giants into submission as a status symbol, and then of course chain them and bind them into their service. Similarly, on the other side of the Mountains of Morn, the Chaos Dwarves also have use of giants, which they will either trade from the ogres or capture themselves in raids, and they too also enslave them, though their enslavery tends to be a bit more sadistic, as they will bind them with runes and iron and then feed them nothing but a slew of blood and cursed diet to turn them into mindless savages, with the purpose, of course, being a heavy support for their armies as they embark on their own expansion. So the giants in this area, far from the prosperous and broad sun-swept uplands of their history, this is now just a nightmarish hell for them. That being said, though, they do still keep coming back. When Tamar Khan swept through on his ultimately ill-fated invasion of Nuln in his quest to become the Everchosen, he did find hundreds of giants, which is a gathering of untold numbers compared to the rest of the world, implying that this area is still the primary location of the giant population. He was able to subdue dozens of them for his armies, trading them to the Chaos Dwarves to turn into siege engines, and then bringing others just as regular Chaos Giants, north in to fight alongside his armies for the invasion of the Empire. Ultimately, giants can be found in almost every army, either as mercenaries, or as labor, or as allies. They are not incredibly picky about who they fight with, just so long as they get to fight with somebody. And they do enjoy the fighting. Ultimately, it's up to you as the player to find a way to fit them into your particular lore, because the giants will find a way to fit into yours. I hope you've enjoyed the little exposition here on giant lore in the Warhammer Fantasy world, and I look forward to making more of these videos as the subject interests me. So thank you very much, and I look forward to seeing your comments below. Thank you.